Hello and welcome to Sassy as Fuck. I'm John McGreevy, copywriter and positioning specialist, and I'm joined by my co-host, the video virtuoso, Alex Radford. This week our guest is Head of Marketing at Hunter, James Milsom. How's it going, James?
It's going fantastic. The moment we started to record, and heard your intro, I smiled, so all good.
Nice.
Oh, good. We like nice smiling at the intro there.
I'm happy I managed to surprise Alex by calling him a video virtuoso, and he literally, I'm distracted by you making the noise like a, oh.
It's a rare thing.
So how's your week going, James? Is it you having a good one so far?
Yeah, really good week. The thing that I love about marketing, especially when you're leading a team, is that you get to wear so many different hats. Some days I'm wearing the cap of the team leader. Other days I'm wearing the baseball cap of product marketer, and some other times I'm kind of doing a little bit of support here and there. It's a really busy week, but it's cliche, and this kind of sets the tone for our episode, I guess. I feel lucky to be able to wake up, and when I have to go, and get into work mode, I'm doing the thing that I love, and it's so varied. So yeah, really good week.
No, it's actually positive. It'd be way worse if you're like, I hate this job. It's a real nightmare. this week's gone awfully. People keep asking me questions. I don't know the answers.
Yeah, no, that was a brief stint at an energy company. I won't say the name of. That was that period for sure.
Oh, okay. So people can check LinkedIn and see who it was there.
Yeah. Oh man. So the way that we got in touch, I'll kind of briefly kind of talk about this because it's interesting to me. You did it through an email marketing kind of campaign as part of Hunter.io.
Yep.
And what struck me as being quite impressive was at the time I was working at doing some cold email marketing, and I wanted to test whether it actually works or not. So I used my kind of the company name and my name, just kind of like using kind of an automated process using a database of some kind. I won't name the kind of the platform that I used, other than it was absolute crap because it flagged up that it found an email, but it didn't actually find my email. It just kind of went off on its kind of own little path. So whatever Hunter.io does, it's doing it very, very well. And also, can you please remove me from this database? Because I'm joking.
It's too late. I'm on the podcast. This is how
it's worked.
You've proven the point now. The value's there.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
But kind of like furthering on to going about kind of cold email and stuff like that. And it's obviously kind of one of the big things that you kind of have been talking about lately is that cold email doesn't suck. It's kind of like a big provocation. It's a bit of a bold kind of statement. But there's a kind of an argument that generally the kind of consensus is that cold email feels dead at this point in time. That it's just, how do we get that kind of sale conversion kind of thing?
Yeah.
So if you kind of were addressing like a room full of the skeptics, what's the kind of compelling piece of evidence that you have to say, well, actually it isn't, it's fine, we can do it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would be in the crowd about 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm being honest. So at Hunter, I have a great team that works with me in marketing, and one of the things that I really believe in, and our CEO Matt absolutely believes in, is kind of looking at our actual usage, our users, and how they go about doing outreach, and analyzing the data and seeing what's working, what are we learning from this, and addressing topics that aren't necessarily being addressed in the way that is transparent and honest with anyone who's looking to do email outreach. And so that sort of ethos led us to, in January this year, 2025, to go ahead and analyze every single email that was sent in Hunter in 2024 from our users. And there are some 11 million emails that kind of qualified as something that we could actually analyze. And we then went out and spoke to over 200 decision makers, primarily from the UK, the US, Canada, France, Germany, And the reason why I would say cold email isn't dead and it doesn't suck, well, that it's not dead, I should be very careful here, is that we asked a very simple question to those decision makers. Which of these channels would you rank as your favorite channels to receive outreach? And cold email was number one. 61% of decision makers in this survey said that they prefer to receive outreach via email, not via their LinkedIn, which came in at second. And definitely they don't want to receive outreach via their mobile phone. And I think we three probably could agree the last time that we probably answered a cold call was, pre ChatGPT at the very least. And so that's why I would say that it's not dead. But the real thing that stood out to me from this analysis, that the guy's name is Zemek, by the way, who did all this amazing analysis for us. It turns out that 95% of the cold emails that get sent are spam. So on the one hand, you've got this optimism of, well, people still want to receive, and they expect to receive emails, for outreach. That's a good sign of hope. But on the other hand, if 95% of those emails are spam, and that some of these decision makers are receiving 10 plus of these sort of emails a week, well, that's a big old gap. If you want to be in the top 5%, great. But how do you get into that 5%? How can we make that 5% 10, 20, 30? So it's not dead, I would say, but there's definitely an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed with why we're doing outreach and how we write that outreach.
So often a lot of people measure their kind of cold outreach is open rate rather than anything else. And it seems as though I've got a very strong opinion that, open rate obviously is highly valuable so that we can get the right kind of targeting. But you've kind of like mentioned in the past in some of your posts and some of the content that you've worked on in the past, where it's more about kind of customization and more kind of personalization. Does that kind of separate it? Because obviously if it's not personal to that person, then does that mean that it's effectively lowering the open rate? Kind of what's the view on kind of, is open rate a good metric to follow in cold outreach?
No. It's one of the metrics that you should think about.
Yeah.
But it's not the metric. It would be like me saying to you, John, you have created a pillar piece of content and you're getting 1,000 unique visits a day. That's great, but what's the end point? What is the purpose of getting that traffic there to view the content? Yes, we can talk about vague things that make a little bit of sense to us as marketers, which would be like brand awareness and educating and thought leadership. But if you don't get newsletter subscriptions, if you don't get demos or free account signups or purchases off the back of that, then it's sort of a vanity metric. And open rates, I would say, are a vanity metric. Firstly, because you could write a great opening line, a great subject line, but if the subject line doesn't relate to the body of the email, then that immediately means great, someone's opened it, but then you've pissed them off, which I think again is probably the experience that we mostly get from outreach. And then if we go a little bit further in terms of the opens being the measurement of success, well, spam filters open up emails. We use Customer IO as our sort of our PLG marketing automation engine. And they've recently introduced, and I love this feature, and sorry, I'm a little bit geeky with loving stats, but they've introduced a feature that now shows me how much of my opens are coming from bots, to be able to detect spam versus humans. I'm not sure how they do that, but they do. And so the open rate can be deceiving, especially if you are contacting sort of .gov, .edu domains where they absolutely have to open your email to detect if there is something dodgy in there. So I wouldn't say that open rates are the be-all end-all. The be-all end-all ultimately is getting a reply to that email. Otherwise, you're shouting into the void. And one of the things that why I say reply rate, not looking at necessarily immediately conversions, is that my wife hates me saying this, but if I propose to my wife on the very first date, then we, you know, I probably would be a free man that we, you know, I probably would be locked up. Why would you expect a prospect to receive an email from you and go, yeah, absolutely, Alex, I'm definitely going to sign up for this thing straight away, instead of, well, I've got some questions, like how did you get my data, or how, you know, why are you reaching out to me? Good cold outreach is based around looking at this as a conversation, not a, this is something I want you to do. It's a, oh, have you seen these 3 things, or have you tried these 3 tips, or something like that. So open rates, reply rate is really where you want to focus your attention on if you're looking at the way to measure success.
So as well as the focusing on the vanity metrics, what are the other key mistakes that people do make when they approach their cold emailing?
Well, I think that and I'm going to get a little deep for a second, but I'm quite meta at the same time. We as a society have kind of got into this more is more mentality. If I have more data and more leads to reach, then I should get better results, or more results, I should say, not better results. But the reality is that less is more. So when we were doing this research, we found out that when you take the time to think about who your ICP is, your ideal customer is, and then filter that down to maybe, you know, they've recently got funding, or they're using Drupal for their CMS or whatever, you're able to get more targeted with the way that you talk to those people, and you're able to find the right people in the organization that would, you know, link up to what it is that you have to offer them. And typically, if a campaign, and we'll call a campaign just like 1 or 2 emails being sent to a group of people, if you have less than 50 recipients, you have a higher reply rate. I think the reply rate is 4.9% versus when you have more than 50 people, I think the reply rate is maybe 3.1. And that difference there is because you're able to be more targeted. So then the number one thing that I feel is that, and I've managed SDRs, and one of my best friends is an SDR. I love him to bits, but he still has that dog with a bone mentality of, if he can go after 500 people with less effort, he's going to do that. But he knows that when he strips it back and he focuses on smaller lists, he has more success. He starts conversations, he creates pipeline, he closes deals. So when you're not able to create a tight list of people and personalize the message, you become irrelevant. And if you're irrelevant, then you are just white noise in everyone's inboxes. And I think that, to me, is like one of the massive failure points that I think we probably all know, but to a degree, I think because the numbers aren't as big that you can see going into the sausage machine, you kind of think, well, I'm not going to get a lot out of it, instead of thinking, well, I might be able to learn better subject lines, I might be able to learn better copy, better hooks, better CTAs. I might be able to do all these things if I test smaller, and then when I see something work, scale it. And that's, it's not a secret sauce. It's not a system that I think a lot of people try to sell people who are using outreach for the first time. It's just common sense. If I target less people, then I can spend more time understanding those people and writing something. And it doesn't have to be War and Peace. It could be like 2 sentences that's going to get their attention.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned personalization, and I'm going to ask the really boring kind of question about that, because there'll be people that will be listening and be like, yeah, but all I know is it's just John. That's all I've got. I can't really put hi, John. Or they'll think, oh, that's personalization. I said, hi, John, it's Tuesday today. Fancy sending an email. So what do you mean by personalization, to kind of get rid of that kind of mentality?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you described there, Alex, that's just mail merge. That's not personalization. Anyone, I mean, I'm not sure if I can still do mail merge. It's been a while since I had to use mail merge. But personalization is if we take it back to basic principles here, whether we're in a marketing role, a sales role, or we've just got a side hustle going, we've either built something or we have thought about something that we can offer to someone that is a solution to whatever their problems are. How do you get to that point? Well, if you're working in a well-established company, then you'll likely have documentation somewhere on what it is those sorts of people have struggles around and why they would have ended up choosing you as a solution. Or if you are if you're just like getting something up off the ground, then you're likely going to have to do a bit of guesswork. You're going to have to do some validation, and that can mean anything from going to LinkedIn or to subreddits or a Discord server. I don't know. It's where you learn about who it is that you're trying to help. And once you know who it is that you're trying to help, that's when you are able to be more personal in the way that you talk to them. And personal doesn't mean, hey, John, I just saw, I don't know if you have kids, by the way. I'm going to say you do. I just saw your child. I just saw little Timmy playing football, in his under sevens down the road the other day. And I saw that you posted about it. Like, that's creepy. That's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, that's weird.
But if you think about that differently and go, okay, well, I know there are people like John. John is this job title. Let's say John is he's a CTO. John is a CTO. Well, okay, well, where do CTOs go? And there are tools like SparkToro, by the way, which are like awesome. They can help you to go, okay, I want to find people who are a CTO. I want to see what sort of social media they follow. And you can start to like pick up some little tidbits there. Like maybe if you know that John and other CTOs follow some celebrity, for instance, you can maybe refer to that. It's just something that shows that you've taken a bit of time to understand them, either in their day-to-day life or in a more general sense about the work that they do. So if I know, if John is a CTO for HubSpot, for instance, then I would, and I have a solution that would help them to get featured more often in LLM overviews. I don't know. Then I would say, I read Sam Altman's recent post around Gen AI doing X, Y, and Z, and I find a way to link that back into what it is that I offer. Personalization is not, it is not doing the creepy. It's not going the creepy route. And it's definitely not just including your name and industry. And I think that's where a lot of people fail. And when I started doing outreach at the beginning of my career, that's exactly what I did. I was like, "Oh, you're John. You work for Shell Energy. Great. We have this thing that you might like." It's basic, and things have evolved. And that's to say nothing, by the way, of simulating what your target recipient may think and feel, which now you can do through pretty good prompting on like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of our listeners are SaaS founders, SaaS marketers, things like that. I think when you follow it, like people say, cold outreach for things like that are dead. Is the post I've seen several times a year for 4 years. But that's. How can cold email be used for something like SaaS or for like a newer startup to do it? Because obviously, I guess you kind of probably want more scale, so you can't probably do that same level of personalization. So how do you kind of find that middle ground of reach, but also getting that attention and getting people to actually reply?
Yeah, I think if you're a founder and you want to quickly increase your reach, I would say look at cold email or cold outreach, whatever you want to call it, in a slightly different way. Look at it, and this I guess would apply to marketers as well, and it's how I look at it. Look at cold outreach as just one of the channels that you have available to you. You should be going to events, physical or virtual. You should be going to local chambers of commerce where it's appropriate. You should be looking at sort of vendor-owned communities. Like I used to go to HubSpot user groups, and that would help me to find agencies. So like there are different ways that you can go about using different channels, but cold outreach should fit into that. Um, and it should fit in alongside things like running paid ads, doing organic social media, um, going through G2 reviews and looking at sorts of people that respond positively to competitors or finding gaps, and then leveraging that in a way that you can find the right message. And then if you think about all these things running alongside one another, you're naturally going to increase your reach. You don't need to be using cold outreach in a way that it is trying to get a call going. For instance, what you could do is something that we recently did in promoting the data analysis that Jemek did in January 2025. We pulled that together into a kind of a report, the state of cold outreach 2025, and we just shared that via, we ate our own dog food. I'm a big believer in that. We shared that with people. We shared that with founders, with marketers, via LinkedIn, via Hunter, and the cold email side of things that the platform offers. So you don't have to be going out there trying to pitch people. It could just be you have an interesting take on something that you think that person may be interested in. You give them a reason to care about that. You could do that at scale. That doesn't require deep personalization. That's just knowing, if I have created that piece of content, for instance, and I know it's good for that audience, then I could include that. I can include a reference and say, this piece, this piece of content I wrote, and I've spoken to people from these 5 different companies and they loved it. Actually, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I would like to get this sort of into a conversation with you. There's no pitching there. It's just, I've created something that I think is of value to you. You have no reason to trust me right now, but here are 5 companies that actually thought this was pretty awesome, and I want to get some feedback. So yes, look at cold outreach as like a layer cake, or different swim lanes that could be going alongside, at the same time, but also look at it in a different light. From, this is just something I'm going to use to do outbound pitching, because I think that's honestly where the spam issue comes from with cold outreach, is that no one wants to be pitched to right off the bat. And if you take the time to send something to someone that is actually of high value, or you think is to that audience, I think you're more likely, as a founder who's wanting to scale pretty quickly, to be successful. And I think as a founder, you typically have a pretty unique take on the world. So why not share that with someone and make it worth their while to want to respond and hear more about it?
Yeah, I like that idea of just kind of going, right, here's straight away, especially if you can go, here's value that I think you like, and then kind of leave it there. It's kind of quite a good way of getting your name into their head and giving them something without just being because people know a cold email eventually wants to lead to a sale. No one's an idiot there. Well, no one's that much of an idiot that they're kind of confused by that. But at the same time, sometimes I think just the idea of being like, hey, here's a thing, cool, enjoy it, get in touch if you have any questions, or I'd love to chat to you about it. It just kind of takes that pressure off. Whereas so often you read a cold email and you feel like, oh, there's going to be another one in 2 days that's going to be like, hey, have you read that yet? Have you read it?
It's worse because it kind of comes across like a storytelling element. It's kind of like, if you're doing cold outreach and you just started with the end, people are going to be like, well, I don't get the value in this. It's like, oh yeah, John died. That's it.
Wait, is that foreshadowing? Or?
Why did I die in the story? Sorry, yeah.
It is foreshadowing. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but it's just like often, I think you've mentioned even on your website that kind of like a good marketing strategy is kind of like effectively a good element of storytelling. You kind of figuring out the who, the why, and then you're kind of like building upon that. If you often have an email that is just that straight up pitch, I want to just sell you. It doesn't have that vested interest. It doesn't have that kind of conversation. And allowing yourself to be more personal, surely, going down to just 50 target people with bespoke, I know that they're interested in all these things. Although it's the kind of same message, it feels truly unique to them because you're listening to those kind of specific tags that you've kind of collated all together.
Yeah. And I think, to that end, sort of, I think when people hear, oh, you should just send to 50 people, that's currently like that's the effective way to do it right now. But I can be kind of vague about this because I think by the time this is live, it'll be in beta. We are currently working on an AI writing assistant that will help you to do the research and to create personalized emails per every recipient. So no more, would you, John, be limited to 50 emails in this first campaign? you may send 500 emails in that first campaign, and every single person, James, Alex, and John, will receive a different message that is unique to them. It is tied into what it is that you want to offer someone and why you think someone would care. It mimics your tone of voice. That's kind of where you can get scale. I think right now it's very much there's a lot of manual research. And the other thing I would say is that, especially for marketers, and again, this was a light bulb moment for me about a year or so ago. I would encourage you to look at cold email no different from an advert on Google Display Network or search. Both of them are making, hopefully, the successful ones are making a very educated judgment on what your target market or your target buyer, is going to be looking for. So in the case of an advert on Google, whether it's display or search, you're making the assumption that if I use these keywords to serve this advert with this message, it will resonate with our audience. Or you're retargeting and saying, if I've gone to someone's gone to these 5 different websites, take them back to mine because I think there's an overlap here. That is more of it's not truly inbound, but it's kind of an inbound play. Whereas outbound should have the same assumptions, should have the same research, should have the same time and care given to writing the message, but you're just knocking on someone's door. The door hasn't been opened because when you open the door, i.e. when you type in the search, you open the door and you see all these adverts. Whereas what's happening here is the adverts are coming to your door and they're knocking. That's kind of weird now, isn't it? Kind of
it's getting creepy again, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of Wellesian, isn't it? The adverts are coming to your door, then they're knocking on it, and they're assuming that you have an interest, and that's what an outreach email can boil down to. It's just an advert. It doesn't matter if it's a pitch, valuable resource, or something else like a podcast pitch. It's a different way to look at a conversation being started, and I think when I appreciated outreach that way, it really there's a bit of an ick. There's an ick associated with cold outreach, and we don't want to call it selling, but really it is selling. It doesn't matter what you're offering. You're kind of selling something. And once you can start to look at something at a different angle like this, I think you would appreciate it more as a channel to use in your go-to-market.
Okay. Now, I just want to switch over to something else. So I was really excited by the idea of messaging madness, and I'd love for you to kind of go in a deep dive of this because I like the idea of competitive email copy. That doesn't. It sounds incredibly nerdy, and it probably is very nerdy, but it's still pretty cool from a marketing side of things.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
Also, can we get invited to the next one? Because I want to just destroy some of the email copywriters, that kind of thing.
I mean, that's cool. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to take you up on that, Alex. So,
oh heck yeah.
Yeah, it is nerdy. I mean, if I can't be nerdy with you guys on this, then I'm not sure where else I can be nerdy. So,
that's very fair.
We are welcome here.
Indulge me. So, off the back of the research that we did in January, I thought to myself, well, this is great, but what does this mean? This is looking at last year. This is looking at 2024. This is looking at our user base. And there are perhaps some biases in that. And so what I ended up doing, it was a call with Matt, my CEO, on a Friday, maybe early February. and we're talking about the research and what we can do to help kind of continue to give it value beyond the release of it. And I said to him, well, I think, what would be good for us is to find a way to get people just to interact with the research. And we kind of played around with this idea of perhaps we take to LinkedIn and we say to Alex, to John, to people like you two, show us your best email and we will get the public to vote on it. And we talked about it a little bit, and the risk there is like, it's the tortoise in its shell. I think people would be a little bit scared to say, oh, here's how I pitch, and someone going, yep, copy paste, that's exactly how I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
I think that was a worry we had, and so I didn't want to limit the potential of doing something like this to kind of making it so much like I want to see every salesperson's pitch. What was happening at the time was I was I was planning to go out on holiday, and it was to see my wife. My wife is American. She lives in DC, and I go out there every 2 weeks. Or not every 2 weeks, but I go out there for 2 weeks and just spend time with her. While having this conversation with Matt, remember the last time that I was out there for Thanksgiving, and we were with my wife's grandmother. She's so lovely. She's late 80s, but she is absolutely addicted to college basketball. And in America, the NCAA is sort of the governing body of any sort of college sport or university sports that we would say. And they organize a basketball tournament. And it just so happened that as we were, as I was looking down the line about what campaigns we had, March Madness, the name of this tournament, absolutely coincided with a blank gap in my roadmap of campaigns. And a bit like the the Simpsons episode where they can't say The Shining. I quickly came up with the idea of, okay, we can base this on March Madness, this tournament that we want to do. Can't call it that though. We can't call it the Sweet 16. We can't call it the Final Four. So what will I do? Well, what I'll do is call it the.
They've got lawyers for days.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, we'll call it the Super 16. We'll call it the Open Rate 8. We'll call it the Follow Up 4. You can tell like my fingerprints are all over how cheesy this is. But the idea really came out of that conversation, and it was a really quick turnaround from random conversation to getting it up and running and sourcing, people to take part. And the tournament in a nutshell was this. 64 people enter. They are given the choice of one of 4 scenarios that they're allocated. So there are 16 people per scenario, and each scenario details the information we found to be most important to being successful with cold outreach from a report in January 2025. So that's things like knowing who the ICP is, being clear with why you're getting in touch, kind of giving some information around, Alex is attending this conference and you're going to be there at the same time, so maybe pitch them to go grab a coffee, something like that. So we ended up with 4 scenarios. We had a scenario for founders, we had a scenario for growth marketers, we had a scenario for SEO managers, and a scenario for a consultant. And everyone sort of was open to join, other than Hunter employees, obviously. And my friends, none of my friends have any interest in this whatsoever.
Yeah,
it was a lot of energy to get it set up and going. But once we started, once we opened up applications, because we had to go from open applications down to 64, we received hundreds of applications, and it was just, hey, write an email based on this scenario with this call to action. We internally judged the hundreds of contestants down to that 64, and we used the different factors that we found from the research to rank people. And it was wild. It's probably the most enjoyable thing I've done in my career. And it was an all hands on deck sort of thing. And we had people managing my social media, people managing the company's social media, managing communicating with the entrants. We ended up with what we call the follow up. For the last 4 people would be the champions per category, and then we would let everyone go against each other. So sort of, yes, you made it to the follow up 4. If you win your category, we gave people a year of our scale subscription, which is a lot of value, to be honest with you. But that wasn't the purpose. Like, the purpose was to get people to engage. And I think we had over 130,000 votes over a month, which is awesome. It was very tiring, but a very exciting thing to do with cold email.
Awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
This is all kind of like visible on your kind of LinkedIn profile on Hunter's. Kind of like, I'm sure there's a way that anybody that is listening can quickly access this to just like be equal nerds.
There was an interactive bracket.
Okay, awesome.
You could go in and vote on different emails. It was a creative way, I think, for us to shine the light on the real issue about spam, which is, if you don't write a good email, it doesn't matter if you have great deliverability. So like all the technical stuff that everyone talks to you about, they'll sell you their system for $30 a month or something. That's great, but if you don't actually write a good email, it's all for nothing.
Were there things that you... Oh, sorry, Alex. Did it again?
No, I was going to probably ask the exact same question that you were going to. So I'll leave this to you.
So I was going to say, so were there lessons that you guys learned? So obviously you guys, I'm sure, see more cold emails than anyone else on the planet day to day. But were there things that you saw as part of messaging madness that you were like, oh, that's really cool, that's a good technique, or were there lessons that you took from the submissions that helped you kind of understand how to do cold emailing better?
I think what it showed me is that if someone knows, and this went for every single submission, if I'm being honest, if someone is clear in their audience, what they have to offer, why that helps them, and then very clear in like the goal of the outreach, I think we can all write a good email. Whether, by the way, and this was open to everyone, you could write the email yourself, or you can use ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, whatever you want. If you know that information, you can actually do a decent job. And so I think that was like the general sense I got, which is, if we were able to give, and I'm talking about us as marketers now, if we can give anyone who does the outreach clear information about who it is and why they're reaching out, I think anyone can do a good job. But if I think more specifically, what was very interesting is that when we looked at the last 4 entrants, and we've released a bit of analysis on this. So there is a report that Zemek has written as well, because he loves data, and he's kind of put out some insights. And what was very interesting is that length of email makes no difference. You could have an email with 50 words or 200 words. And early in my career, by the way, I've seen some SDRs write copy that refers to Genghis Khan, which is a new one. That was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long the email is. It doesn't matter if you use emojis, if you use GIFs, if you attach PDFs, whatever. What matters is that you actually think about the recipient. So for marketers, we should know this pretty well with buyer personas. When we do buyer personas, we're very clear in, I know that John prefers emails, and he frequently is in his inbox. So therefore, that's probably a good channel for John. And with that information, I should be able to guess that he probably has more time to read a longer message. What was really interesting is that when our contestants took the time to think about the recipient, so for instance, the pre-revenue founder was running outreach to heads, to associates, to partners at law firms offering a made-up legal tech CRM. And that email there was more formal, it had more depth to it, versus the email that was for SEO. And the SEO email was an SEO manager reaching out to a director of marketing of a sort of a Shopify alternative vendor. That was very different. There were emojis found in there. It was more laid back, versus we had the other two categories. And so the point being here is, I think why those ended up winning their categories was because they took the time to think clearly about who I'm writing to, how much should I write, what should I say. There was so much variation there that I think that's a nugget that I took from it, which was we need to really stop and think about how much is too much and how much is not enough for our recipients.
Okay, cool.
Nice. Right, well, now is the part of the episode that Alex loves the most, which is the quiz. I don't know if you are aware of this, James, at all, but this year we've introduced a quiz. I introduced a quiz. I surprised Alex with a quiz. Last week he did the quiz and he humiliated me, which was very upsetting for me. I would never do that to him. This week the quiz, just so you feel a bit at ease. So it's I only want one of you to panic. The topic of the quiz is the state of cold email report from Hunter. So this will be there. So I will just go through 5 questions. It's a competition. So, feel free to be as competitive as you want. You can call Alex names if you want, or just some smack talk. Everything's open here. But so I'll go through and take it into. Obviously, it's a fair quiz. Both questions for both of you are just as easy as the other ones. So
okay, good.
So if Alex doesn't do well, it's just because he's obviously not. It's not the question's fault, is what I'm saying. There's no prize because we've got no budget on the podcast, but it's going to be just gloating rights towards the end. So, Question 1 is for you, James. What is the preferred method amongst decision makers for receiving outreach?
Cold email.
It is cold email. That's the correct answer.
Well done. Wow.
Glad I got that one right.
Yeah.
Your question for you. Yeah. And this one should be easy as well because it was mentioned earlier. What percentage of decision makers prefer cold email?
42.
That is incorrect. James, do you want to say it again for the bonus point?
61%.
61% is correct.
It's just bullshit at this point on.
What do you mean bullshit? What do you?
It just.
These are equally as easy answers to questions to answer.
Okay,
close enough. You should say that 48 is close enough to 61%.
Yeah,
In what quiz? In what quiz would that have come on? Question 2, James. According to the report, does it bother people if AI is used to create cold emails?
No, 2/3 said they do not mind at all.
Oh, we've got extra stats as well.
That is the correct answer. And in all fairness, Alex, this might benefit you, that extra stat. So, for Alex, for you, what percentage of people does it bother?
33%.
That's correct. That's
oh my
correct.
God.
You got one right.
This is the first time, I think, in our whole podcast series that I've actually got a point in this quiz. So
it's 2-1 currently. This is the closest it's ever been.
Yeah. No. I feel like I'm sweating right now.
Yeah, it is tense.
So, James, question 3 for you. When it comes to follow-ups, do people appreciate a follow-up, find follow-up emails annoying, or just don't mind?
They prefer follow-ups.
They do. They appreciate the follow-up. Wow. That's another point. That's 3 points. So it's 3-1 currently. Alex,
Yeah,
you,
I've got this. Yeah.
what percentage of people find follow-ups annoying?
What was the last one? The last one, 61%. 61%?
So you think even though James just said that most people appreciate the follow-up, you're saying that 61% of people find it annoying?
I'll be honest, John, I got really stressed out and I just wanted to go for a number. So
that's incorrect. James, do you know it for a bonus point?
The number of people who don't want follow-ups.
Yeah, who find the follow-ups annoying.
Ooh.
It's just for a bonus point. You can pass if you want. It's, you know, it was 25%.
Yeah, okay.
You're still 3-1 up. It's fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Oh no, it's 4-1 up. Sorry, my counting's off.
I like how.
What's up?
I just want to point out. I like how James is getting really into like the quiz element, and he's still knowing that I'm getting absolutely destroyed. But he's still like, I still want to ruin Alex at this point. I want all the bonus points.
Well,
I hope this makes James's day. How'd your Wednesday go? How'd your Thursday go? I ruined a person's day by smashing him in a quiz about my report.
Yeah, it's no different from playing, Pro Evolution Soccer back in the day and wanting to destroy your best friend. It's no different. Sorry.
That's true. That's true. That is very true. Yeah, I understand that. I've got an older brother. I'm used to getting demolished at these kind of games, so it's all good.
I've played games with Alex before, so I can vouch for that. So, question 4, James, what is the best time to send cold emails? Is it in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter at all.
That is the correct answer. That is now 5-1 currently.
Wow.
It's okay. Alex has got some chances here to
that's it. This is
up.
the redeeming.
So, Alex, question 4 for you is: what percentage of people said it doesn't matter?
I'm going to say 40%.
It is not 40%. James, do you notice what is the funniest number that people could think of? Give it a go for a bonus point.
69.
It is 69%. That is correct. That is a bonus point there for James. And then, so this is now 6-1. 6-1.
Nice. I'm learning, but I also feel humiliated. It's a conflicting emotion.
That's what the quiz aims to do, is to really, it's informative for everyone and humiliating for Alex. And that's what really is. And hopefully it gives you a good ego boost, James, as well. You can feel good to win a nice quiz, even though the questions were of even and level difficulty.
They are even. Yeah, they are.
So,
even,
question 5 for you, James, is: do people prefer custom sender domains or webmail addresses like Gmail or Outlook?
Ooh, webmail.
It's incorrect. It's custom sender domains.
Darn it.
Oh.
I was going to pass it over and realize there's only 2 options there. So if I hand it over to Alex, that'd be just gifting him a point.
Free
That's
point.
not really.
Yeah, that's just not fair. Yeah.
So final question for you, Alex. Question 5 for you. So I will give you 4 points if you get this one right.
Okay.
So, Alex, in what year did James leave his job as accountan's assistant at Sainsbury's?
I'm gonna 2015.
That's incorrect. I'll pass over to you, James.
Oh, wow.
If you're like me, though, you also won't know the answer to this question.
I think it is 2013.
That's correct. You get 4 points there, so that means you got 10 points. So 10 points, James, to 1 point, Alex. Possibly the worst result, I think, maybe.
Yeah, it's the most points any of our guests has ever gotten as well. So it's the new record right now.
That is a new record. So congratulations, James. You win the quiz there. You can. I'm sure you'll message all your friends and family and boast about this for days to come.
I can't wait to tell them.
Oh dear.
Right, so I think that's it. I think thank you so much for coming on and joining us, and for battering Alex and answering our questions very well. Before you go, though, where can people find and follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn pretty easily. That's kind of the only social media I have. I sound like an old man. But you can find me just my name, James Milsom. I'm one of those people that managed to get their LinkedIn URL to be their actual name, not
Nice.
James-85ABD22. So, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been
Thanks for
great.
having me.
Thank you.